Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Something big is happening with Rezolve. Rezolve was a big outperformer today. But if you look at what the short sellers are doing, they're basically dumping all of their short positions. They are exiting quickly. Okay? Maybe some of the shots fired recently is soon coming to an end. We've been ducking and diving. It's like we've been in the trenches for a while now. And it does seem like something big is coming for Rezolve. With that said, we're going to get into all of your new information you need to know. Now, there was a conference from Rezolve yesterday that could have part to do with it. There were some pretty exciting things that were shared. A lot of information we already knew about, but hey, you know, Rezolve's an under-the-radar stock that a lot of Wall Street does not know of yet. So just reiterating older information that we already know about can have a positive impact on the stock. So we have a lot to get into in today's episode. I will share my position in Rezolve again for anyone that likes to see where that is at on a day-to-day basis. And I'll share my expectations over the next couple of weeks because something is happening with Rezolve and you need to know about it. Do me a quick favor and hit that like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already, and check that link out down below in the description of today's episode, and let's get started. Now, first and foremost, I just want to say, I screen Twitter or X every day to see what people are talking about in Rezolve, and Rezolve is starting to get more attention. Okay. Here's a post about Rezolve from 8 hours ago. There was one really big account, Top Stock Alerts, that they have 122,000 followers. I'll give them a follow just because, why not? They tagged Rezolve and said, making a move, keep an eye. This was about 2 hours ago, okay? And other people talking about their, keeping an eye on this one. Right? So there's starting to be a little bit more of a retail investor presence in Rezolve today that could be contributing to Rezolve's move. Rezolve is still suffering from very low volumes, okay? The dollar amounts trading hands in Rezolve is basically nothing, okay? If you look at yesterday, there was 10.8 million shares that traded hands with an average share price. The high of the day was $2.98. The low of the day is $2.69. A lot of the day the stock was around $2.80. So let's call that as the midpoint, the volume weighted average price, if you will. That's only $30 million trading hands in Rezolve. If you look at any of the other high flying AI stocks, like BBAI, look at yesterday, okay? There was 107.5 million for volume, okay? With a low of the day at $5.43 and a high of the day at $6.21. Let's take $5.60. Even, let's go on the low side of the midpoint of yesterday. And that was $602 million trading hands in BBAI. That is 20 times more than Rezolve, okay? Pretty incredible. Just the lack of volume Rezolve is receiving on a dollar basis. But things get really weird when you start to look under the surface at what's happening from hedge funds and institutions. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this. We've talked about this on the channel before. Okay, over this weekend, the past couple of days now that this has been happening. But the short interest in the past month has went from about 11% down to 4.13% today. Just today alone, the short interest is falling 15% of the total, right? That's crazy. Like, there has been an exodus of short sellers in the past month as the stock has been falling. It gets even weirder though. Today, there's 3.5 million shares being covered on. If you look at the volume, about 9 million shares traded hands today, as of right now. That's a lot of the volume. That's basically all of the perceived buying pressure, I would say, today. Are short sellers covering on short positions? Why are they running out of Rezolve? Is there something coming that we don't know about? You have to understand, I've been in the markets for a very long time. And when you see this unusual activity, it typically means something is coming. It typically means Wall Street knows of something. Keep in mind, Citadel is a major investor in this company. Okay, Citadel. Where are they? They own 7% of the stock. They bought shares in the $6 range. Okay, and their recent 13F filings have only shown their position grew. Okay, so do they know something? Did they tell other people of something coming? You have to start asking these kind of questions when you see this kind of activity, because it's unusual. Rezolve was really a standout stock today. And you mix that with what the short sellers are doing, and it raises some questions for me. Now, yesterday, you had one institutional trade that was flagged as unusual. Keep in mind, if you go out and buy 10 options on Rezolve, you're not going to show up in the scanner. You have to spend $10, $20, $100,000 in a single trade, something like that, to stick out on the scanner. That's why I say it's hedge funds and institutions 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10, because those are the guys making these kind of, really large trades. So yesterday, there was a February 19th, 2026 $5 call. These are 30 cents a piece, so the break even is $5.30 for the stock by February 19, 2026. That is a very short-term trade. Someone is targeting some pretty large upside on a percentage basis, okay, in a short amount of time. Now, that trade was worth about $11,500. Today, you have a January 15, 2026 $2 call that a hedge fund paid $118 per contract. They bought 980 of these for almost $116,000. That means your break even is $3.18 roughly by January 15th, 2026. Now, that's not crazy upside from here, but that's a lot of money betting that Rezolve moves in the upside direction, right? And you only break even at $3.18. So really, that's projecting additional upside above that, okay? So you're starting to see bullish option activity, short sellers rushing out of the stock. It begs the question, is there some kind of news coming? I don't know, but it's unusual. Now, Dan Wagner did confirm over this last weekend that Rezolve will give an update to 2025 ARR, where they ended the year in December. So that's going to be coming up here in the next couple of weeks, okay? It's probably going to come out just on X one morning that Rezolve hit XYZ ARR, and that's going to be, an upside catalyst. I would imagine that Rezolve, if it was bad, would probably wait until 2026, until their first earnings. They wouldn't be, publishing these numbers earlier than they had to. So I imagine that number in December is going to be a good one, just to add to kind of the argument here. Okay. Now, what's also interesting today is I came across an article that goes over Rezolve's fair value from a DCF cash flow model. And guess where it is? In the $8 range. It says here, Rezolve AI discounted cash flow analysis. A discounted cash flow DCF model estimates a company's intrinsic value by projecting its future cash flows and then discounting those amounts back to today's dollars. This approach helps investors understand what Rezolve AI stock could actually be worth compared to its current price. Rezolve AI's current free cash flow stands at negative $71.3 million, showing the company is not generating positive cash flow as of now. Analysts project that by 2027, free cash flow should rise dramatically to $27.7 million. Looking even further ahead, extrapolated estimates indicate free cash flow could expand to $262.4 million by 2035. I think by 2035, you could be in the billion plus range. My opinion. Now, it says these long-term forecasts rely on a mix of analyst estimates over the next 5 years, with later figures based on standard industry growth models. Putting all these projections through the DCF formula results in an intrinsic fair value of $8.88 per share. The model finds the stock to be trading at a 67.5% discount to its calculated value, which suggests the market may be significantly underpricing Rezolve AI based on cash flow fundamentals alone. So unprofitable companies typically are going to trade on DCF models, or more commonly on price to sales ratios. Okay, now depends what industry a company is in, like different factors go into it. But when you're comparing other unprofitable companies, it's safe to say if you have 10 unprofitable AI hypergrowth companies that are trading at, let's call it 10 times price to sales, Rezolve trading at 2 times price to sales is undervalued. And that has been the argument that I have made, that not those 10 hypergrowth stocks are significantly overvalued. Maybe they're overvalued a little bit, but that Rezolve is significantly undervalued. Okay. Now, even again, based on the DCF model, suggesting a fair value for Rezolve is $8.88. That would be almost 200% upside, 191% upside to be more specific, just to get to a fair valuation on a DCF model. That is incredible. I mean, that just shows you to the extent of how undervalued the stock is. Now, what's also pretty incredible about today is the Russell 2000 was really an underperformer. Okay, Russell was barely green, and a lot of other AI stocks were down today. BBAI, one we picked on earlier, down 3%. DataVault AI, another stock that is a hyper-growth AI company that's trading at 2 times price to sales, less than that. And that stock was down 9.5% today. Sure, it's done well recently, but still down 9.5% today. SoundHound was barely break even. Poet was down 1%. Tempest AI was up 2%. And then you have Rezolve up 5.5% right now. Rezolve really was a standout. On a technical basis, okay, here's where things get interesting as well. The 200-day moving average is at about $3.08 a share. The stock is at $3.04 right now. It had a high of the day at about $3.17. It got some rejection once it broke above the 200-day moving average. If you can get above that and close above that this week, then you start to open up the gap for significant upside. Okay, the next target area would be around $4.16, and that would be your 100-day moving average, because around these levels is when we went through the last rally, right? Is when Rezolve really started to take off. So we don't have any real significant levels of resistance until we get closer to the 100-day moving average. There's nothing here on the chart that looks like it would be resistance, maybe $3.75. But again, that would be pretty significant upside if we can break that 200-day moving average at about $3.08, okay? Now, you really want to see some volume come in. You really want to get a contract PR. You really want to get some good news if Rezolve starts reporting on a quarterly basis or something. That's what's going to move the stock the most. But again, based on what we're seeing in the options activity from hedge funds and institutions, and especially what we're seeing with the shorts, there is something coming for Rezolve. We just don't know what it is yet. Now, Rezolve, you can also see, was very oversold. It had an RSI of 24. Today, the RSI is at 32. Anything below 50 is oversold. 50 is neutral. Above 50 is positive. Below 50 is negative or oversold. So you're at 32. You're extremely oversold still at this point. There is significant room to move to the upside before you're even getting close to 50 or neutral on the RSI. So there's plenty of room to run here. You can also see over on StockTwits, for the first time in a long time, the sentiment indicator is bullish at 60. This thing has been bearish for a long time. Okay, now I guess yesterday, technically you were bullish as well. But even before yesterday, this thing was looking bearish for like some months. Okay, not a lot of activity around the stock. Retail investors really don't know that Rezolve is what they're doing. I think if more retail investors knew that Rezolve is trading at less than 2x sales, Rezolve has senior executives from, Microsoft, Google, Apple, you get it, with the company, there would be a lot more excitement in the retail investor community about Rezolve. I think we are in the very early stages of this company, and that's why I continue to hold long, and that's why I didn't sell at $8. I bought the stock in the $2 range. We're pretty good at identifying early opportunities in the trading community. If you guys want to come join us, check that link out down below. But I think better days are ahead for Rezolve. Okay, but nonetheless, the bullish sentiment is at 63. So not super bullish, but getting better. Message volume is normal today at 52, and the participation ratio is extremely high at 78. There's only 10,392 people that are watching Rezolve on StockTwits, so it's very low still from a retail investor perspective. And I think, retail is inevitably going to get behind this company. All of the pieces are there. The long-term trajectory of the business seems to be going well. And it's really only a matter of time, in my personal opinion. So let me know your thoughts on this down below in the comment section. Hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel. Oh yeah, how could I forget? My position, unchanged from the last video. You got market value about $43,000 here. 14,250 shares, average cost $2.99. So I am now green, up about 1% on this position again. It's been a wild ride with Rezolve going, from, this is averaging up, by the way. I was buying the stock in the $2.20 levels, and then it went to $8.50. And then it came right back down to being red, and now we're barely green on it. But when I buy a stock, I'm buying the company, right? If I'm buying the stock, then I don't necessarily care about price action until it gets to levels in which I view as, fair value, and it never got to a fair value in my personal opinion. So I continue to hold long. This position, the same as well. Average cost basis $2.89. Unrealized return up about $1,400 here. Current value $35,000 with about 305 shares. So add that together. Yeah, I guess public raised margin requirements on Rezolve, so I didn't know that. So they just sold like 4,000 shares, which, whatever. I have plenty, so it's not like, I'm not exposed to the stock. But I have 1,000 shares in Webull and 1,300 shares in Thinkorswim. That's 27,855 shares total times $3.02. We have exposure at this point of about $84,000, and most of it is just what I initially invested at this point. Like the gains are pretty much gone from averaging down in the $4 and $3 area. I brought my average up to we're no longer sitting on $100,000 worth of gains in the stock. We're back to square one, but I am not worried at all about Resolve. If something changes, if management, starts screwing up or something, like that would be the reason I would sell this stock. Not because Wall Street's freaking out for no reason. Wall Street is just a bunch of babies. Okay, they just just a bunch of babies. They have no idea what they're doing. Okay? So let me know your thoughts on this down below in the comment section. Ladies and gentlemen, hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Come join the trading community if you guys would like to. Link down below in the description of today's episode. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.